Hello and welcome to the Shacknews Chattycast, the podcast that killed Lois Lane. Sorry. Uh, I'm one of your hosts, Steve Watts.
I'm the other host, Brian Carr, and Steve, it kind of looks like we're off the air right now, so I don't know if you want to keep going with this. Oh, there we go. Now we're live. Hooray!
No, it says live. It's continuously said live for me.
All right.
We'll fix this in post. In post.
So, Steve. All right, I'll just pretend I didn't say that. I'm your other host, Brian Carr, and Steve, today's Chattycast brought to you, as always, by Audible.com. Get your free audiobook and a 30-day free trial by going to audibletrial.com/Chattycast.
That's right. So every week we pick a big topic, post about it in the Shack News Chatty, and then talk about it in detail with your comments. Hence Chattycast this week. To tie into Injustice, we are talking about the different ways the developers sort of interpret known characters. The Injustice take is pretty different from any other take on the DC canon. So we're going to talk about like what makes these characters that flexible. What are the sort of core aspects of characters that have to be maintained for it to even make sense? Things like that. Before we get to all that stuff. Oh, and also it's just the two of us.
Yeah, just the two of us.
I should explain just for a moment a short programming note. It's just the two of us because we are recording at a different time this week because of various other factors going on. We missed last week. I didn't want to miss another week. We missed last week because I was sick. I am still sick. You could probably hear it. I didn't want to miss 2 weeks in a row. But there are other things going on this week. I'm going to be traveling. It's going to be difficult to record any other time. So we're recording sort of earlier in the day than usual when it's harder to get people on. And there's also people that we would have on, like David is sick now, and Ozzy. If you haven't been paying attention to the site, Ozzy is back, and we'd like to have him on, but he's traveling as well. So there's lots of moving parts this week. For those not involved in the game industry, it's Judges Week, so there's lots of things happening. At any rate, that is why we were recording a little bit early and why it's just the two of us.
See, I do all my judging informally. I don't confine it to a formal week.
I do all my judging sitting on a porch.
Yeah. And I like looks of those teenagers.
And drinking tea.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about what we are playing. Brian, what have you been playing lately?
Oh, boy, Steve. Let's see. I finished Zelda. You want to start with that?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Let's go for it. I've gotten no further whatsoever. But let me know. Let me know how it's going.
Yeah. I will say this. I want to say before I say anything else, I think it's a great game. I think it's an easy contender for Game of the Year so far.
Here comes the butt.
The second best Zelda game, but I am done with it. I don't want to play it anymore. I feel like I'm good. I don't need DLC. I had enough Zelda.
Yeah, fair.
I put about 60 hours in. I'm good.
We talked about that a little bit last week. How the DLC is very like it makes your run easier, and it's like but if you've already finished it, like what's the point of that?
Yeah. Well, like honestly, here's the reality of the situation. The final boss isn't that hard.
Yeah, I mean, like I haven't actually had that much trouble with the bosses, mainly because I'm just like I find the spot that I'm supposed to hit with the arrow, and then I hit it a bunch, and I kind of keep my distance.
It's a cool sequence. Like the whole final confrontation thing is fun. It's just that getting to the final boss and fighting the final boss really kind of feels anticlimactic. And once you finish it, it's like, well, what's the point of doing anything else? So maybe they'll make a case for that in the DLC. But I will say I am happy with the time I spent with Zelda. But I'm good. I'm ready to move on. It's a great game. I will not question that, but it's just, to me, it's just another thing where I feel like it's
you had your time with it. You had your winter romance, and you're like, okay, that was good for a time in my life. Yeah. And now I feel like I've learned from it.
Yeah. And I feel like I don't regret my time with it. I enjoyed it very much. But I also feel like it doesn't stick the landing the way I was kind of hoping it would. And I think part of that might just be that I'm just not that connected to the Zelda mythology. Maybe somebody who would just have lost their mind in tears at the end of that game, but I am not that guy. But I also get all misty-eyed every time I hear the song from the end of Final Fantasy 15. So I guess the characters need to look like J-pop stars for me to care about them, I think is what has to happen.
Yeah, more big hair is what's really needed.
But speaking of things I do care about, of course, it's Superhero Week on the Chattycast, and appropriately enough,
what week isn't Superhero Week though? Let's be honest.
Appropriately enough, I've been playing NBA Playgrounds. So here's the thing about this game. I actually do have some superhero stuff to talk about.
Did you buy it, or
did.
Was this the demo? Oh, okay.
Well, I played the demo and I was kind of like, I don't know, because I just kept, because it was only online, and I just kept getting absolutely murdered by people who had been playing for longer than I had. But I'm like, well, I'm bored. I came across some store credit for the eShop. What the hey, I'll get this, because the other option was Wonder Boy, and I just didn't feel like playing a Metroid Mania game at that point. So I got NBA Playgrounds, and I got to tell you, I actually kind of like it.
All right.
Let me.
I heard not great things. I haven't really played it myself.
Well, here's the thing. The criticisms are 100% justified. I think that this game is very rough around the edges. I think it's a good game that could and should have been great, and maybe it'll be great when they do some patching and that sort of thing. But I'm not going to lie, it's kind of fun. It's not at all an NBA Jam game. It is absolute nonsense is what it is. But like it's got this weird sort of strategic meta game to it about like, when to use like certain power-ups and placement and like how to, and that sort of thing. And playing against the CPU, I kind of felt like I could actually figure out how to play the game. So once I figured out how to play it, I had a lot more fun. It was not fun losing 70 points or losing by 70 points playing online. Yeah, so now I'm actually kind of glad they didn't patch that into the Switch version right away. It does not look great on the Switch screen. I'll say that. It's very blurry. I'm not normally a guy who picks up on that, but it is night and day. But it's playable enough, and I do most of my stuff on handheld anyway. But so it's if you're on the fence, I mean, maybe wait until they patch some stuff, but I don't regret picking it up, and it'll be
wait until it's like a PlayStation Plus game in like 6 months or whatever.
But if you want to get it on Switch, I mean, why not? It's kind of a slow month for Switch, but it's something to keep you tied over till arms, unless you want to get Street Fighter, which I don't know why.
Yeah, you could get Ultra.
Yeah,
Ultra Street Fighter 2. Yeah,
yeah. I'm talking mess. Like I won't actually do it. There's a strong chance I'm going to get that game, and I have no idea why.
Yeah, well, you want to play as Violent Kin. That's the answer.
I kind of do.
And Pacifist Ryu. That was the joke in our chat room. Was the inverse of Violent Kin would be Pacifist Ryu.
Hasn't Ryu always been a pacifist?
None of the punch buttons actually do anything.
Yep. He's just like, this shall pass.
That would be a pretty fun gag if they actually put that in there.
It's like just Ryu turning the other cheek at all opportunities.
He just says, "I love you" every time.
I couldn't make that joke. I'm not as well versed in the scripture as I probably. It never took.
We're going down a weird path.
Yeah.
So have you been playing? Have you been playing anything else?
Yeah. So superhero stuff. I've been playing 2 superhero things. Number one is I have been dabbling in the Marvel Heroes Omega beta.
Oh yeah.
Which is funny to say out loud.
That totally seems like it would work on a console, to the point that like I kind of wonder why they didn't do this. What like 2 years ago or something?
Well, there's probably a good reason they didn't do it, because when Marvel Heroes came out, the whole idea of a Diablo game on console hadn't really been proven out. Like you had a couple of ones back in like the PlayStation era, but they weren't particularly great. And I think once Blizzard actually brought Diablo 3 to the consoles and showed that it could work just fine, you had Gazillion kind of looking at it and be like, yeah, maybe we want to get a piece of that. So, and I think they also kind of had their hands full.
What about Diablo, but with Cyclops?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. And it's a good formula, but I also think they're not a huge studio, so that might have been the other thing that was kind of holding them back. But if you haven't played Marvel Heroes, the open beta I think starts on Friday. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. But if you didn't get into the closed beta, that's okay. They're going to be wiping everything in a day or so anyway. But it is worth checking out if you like action RPGs and Diablo-type games and you like Marvel Comics. And as it so happens, Steve, that's me. So I've been playing. I have played the. I spent a pretty good amount of time on the PC version of Marvel Heroes, and I think it's a great game. It's rough around the edges on PC. It's rough around the edges on console too. I think there's some stuff with the UI that needs some tweaking. It's not as smooth as Diablo, but it is a nice sort of thing. If you already sort of played Diablo to death on the console and you're looking for something similar, this is a great way to do it. Plus, they're offering some founders packs and that sort of thing. The way I like to look at Marvel Heroes is it's free to play, but you have to pay for the heroes, or you also get them through play and that sort of thing. But I look at it like this: would you pay $60 for a game in which you could play as Rocket Raccoon or Wolverine and Diablo? And if the answer is yes, then just buy those heroes, and like it's essentially the same as just buying that game. So
right, yeah.
Like I think it's a pretty reasonable value proposition for the amount of work that they put into making those characters unique and interesting. I've been playing as Star-Lord and Captain Marvel because I've been trying to find people I haven't played as before. I don't find either of them super compelling, but maybe when you get into the higher levels they are. But it's just a good time. Plus it's like couch co-op too, I think, which is a huge selling point. This would be a really fun thing to play with friends or family online. So I think it's going to be an open beta for most of the summer, and I think it's worth your time to check out.
The one thing that disappointed me was the news that like, oh, if you played on PC, your heroes don't transfer. Because it's been a long time, but I think I actually did purchase a hero or two on PC because I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think you got Squirrel Girl.
Yeah, I'm like $20 down in the PC version, and then they're like, that doesn't transfer. And I'm like, son of a bitch.
I think I'm like $60 down. Like I said, I usually cap out around how much it would cost for one of these games if I just bought it off the shelf.
Sure, yeah.
But
that's been my justification for buying Overwatch packs for like forever.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, it's really good though, and I'm so excited they brought it to consoles. I think it's going to do very, very well for them there, and I'm hoping that they do some tweaks to the UI. I think that's what the beta is going to be for. I mean, it's like I said, it's very rough. There's like still things where it's like push and like so they'll have like these prompts, right, to push a certain button. They'll like to bring up your map, push, it's just like weird like programming string language, like null value map button, something like that, instead of triangle, right? So
it's an alpha. It's alpha.
Yeah,
ass alpha.
It is like it's a legitimate beta. Like they have not done all the polish on it yet, but it's all the important stuff's there, and you can figure it out.
Yeah.
And the final thing I have played is I've been dabbling in the Injustice 2 mobile game, which is fine and fun and kind of a nice holdover till the actual game comes out. I don't think I'm going to be playing it much past that point, because once I get the stuff that it unlocks in the console version, the utility of that game is pretty much run out for me. So,
sure.
But it's cool. I've got Deadshot and Dr. Fate and Green Arrow on my team, and it's a good time. But it's very frustrating. I don't think the controls are that great. It looks gorgeous though. It's a really good looking mobile game.
Yeah.
So I don't have much more to say about it than that.
All right. Well, I've been playing. I've been sleeping a lot. But yeah, I've been sick. But in my moments of lucidity, I've been playing some.
They're few and far between.
Yeah. Those 5 minutes here or there. I've been playing Fire Emblem Echoes. Full name: Fire Emblem Echoes: Shadows of Valentia. I think it is.
You have to say it. You have to say the full name every single time, or doesn't
it's obnoxiously long. Especially since the original name, as far as I understand, is basically just Fire Emblem Gaiden, and it's like you could have just gone with that, guys.
Well, here's my thing. Here's my thought on that. The take I get is this might be sort of a way for them to re-release old games in the series. So instead of saying
just call it Echoes and then call
Fire
it something
Emblem
else.
Echoes : Path of Radiance, or Fire Emblem Echoes : whatever, because I think they're already setting that up as like Echoes are like a flashback kind of thing in the Fire Emblem universe. So
it makes sense. So it's pretty good. It's got some notable differences. The review embargo just went up like right before we started recording, and my review is not up because I was delayed by illness. But I'm working on it. So it's pretty significantly different in some ways. Most of them are either good or at least interesting. It comes from a time when they were obviously like trying to hybridize the Fire Emblem strategy thing with like other JRPGs. So you've got things like random battles where you'll have enemies spawning on the map, and then you can run into them and go into a battle. So you have like dungeon exploring, where sometimes you'll go into an actual 3D area. Obviously it wasn't 3D in the first place, but you'll go into like a 3D area and there's like a dungeon, and you look around the dungeon and you might get into a random battle in there, where you find like a skeleton creature and you hit it, and then it takes you into the strategy RPG battle map. So there's like exploring, there's loot that you find. You can sort of like do a pixel hunt thing, sort of like in Phoenix Wright when you're looking for evidence. They have screens like that where you're just kind of looking around and you're like, oh, you found a steel spear, Yeah, Yeah.
But do you have to like find certain things to progress, or is it just kind of like, hey, there's some loot
You
here?
don't have to, but it's a good idea to do that. Okay. I mean, the things are like pretty obvious. It highlights
so
when
it's not about solving puzzles. Just here's some loot.
No.
Okay.
It highlights when you like are hovering over something that can be interacted with, either just like make a comment about it or to take it. And sometimes like on the ground you'll find like a cell door key for a prison, and then when you use it on the prison that's downstairs, like you get another character who is trapped there. Things like that. And obviously you get like extra weapons, more weapons than you actually need, so you can sell some of them for some silver. So it's like little interactivity points like that. It's kind of weird in that way that it doesn't feel as cohesive as like modern Fire Emblem is. Like, this is just a straight up strategy RPG. All the systems are refined to like go down that narrow linear path. This is like doing a bunch of other things in minor ways and doing all of them like okay. The one thing that I'm not a huge fan of, that's sort of a holdover from that era of RPGs, and something that I didn't even realize until I'd say yesterday, like pretty recently. I was getting my butt kicked pretty consistently on this one battle, and I was like, okay, let me try this other battle, which was even harder. And so I'm like, I just felt stuck. I was like, what am I even supposed to do? I'm doomed, and it finally occurred to me, like, oh, the fact that they have enemies spawn on the map and you can go into random battles, this is a grinding game. I did not realize that a Fire Emblem would be a grinding game where you actually have to go into these random battles from time to time to grind up some experience, or else you just cannot handle the story battles. In a lot of Fire Emblem games, especially, the most recent ones, if you just do the critical path, you're fine. Like that gets you enough levels to go through because they don't have random battles. But in this one, I feel like I really do need to take some time to do some of these random battles and get my character levels up to be able to handle this story battle that is stymieing me. And that's not like the greatest thing.
No.
That's one of those things that like RPGs have sort of strayed from for good reason. And this goes back to it. So, not a huge fan of that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, you're talking about a lot of the stuff in this game, and the grinding and that sort of thing. I'm not a huge fan of, but everything else kind of sounds good. Like, I'm interested.
Yeah, I don't mean to. I recommend it because it's a good Fire Emblem game, and it's at the very least an interesting Fire Emblem game, and that it does so many things differently. And I think that the story is interesting in that it's this. It is very old school RPG. There's like two friends that are like friends from childhood, and they get ripped apart by these circumstances. But it's very political intrigue-y. Like, there's a lot of talk of like, the count of this kingdom believes that this happens, and like, like
yeah, I love that kind of stuff, because like here's my thing on the more recent Fire Emblems. Like, I didn't really get into the series until Awakening, right? And so I feel weird saying this, but I feel like that franchise has gone down a path that is very much about fan service and just, and I mean, like,
I'll be honest, there's a little bit of that. It happens in a different way. In the most recent Fire Emblem games, between battles, you'll go back to your headquarters, and then it's like, okay, now do all of your dialogue prompts in a row, one by one. It takes you like a half hour. It's kind of obnoxious, because by the time I get to the last one, or even like a few before the last one, I'm just like, oh my God, shut up. Like, just say that,
I don't care what any of you have to say.
Like, just say that you love the dude that you're talking to, or whatever it is. It gets obnoxious. In this, it's just like, when you're in battle, sometimes when you highlight a character, it'll say, you can talk to this other character. And then that'll bring up a little thing. And it happens once in a while. And since it's in the middle of battle, it's, I think, paced a little better. Right. But it is still doing the whole romance thing. There are some where like it's mostly like, I guess this is just how Japanese RPG romances work. It's always like one character who is being super obvious about their affections, and the other character not fucking getting it. Because there were like a few of them that were very obvious. Like, one of the main characters, Alm, like one of his friends from childhood, was like, crazy excited that he had shared some like old moldy bread with her because it was all they had to eat, And she was like, "Oh, it made me feel so special." And he's like, "Huh, that's weird." And it's like, "You're a dumbass."
Mm-hmm.
It was hilariously out of touch. And it being Fire Emblem, the Fire Emblem has actually been like pretty progressive as far as like having gay relationships too. And
Mm-hmm.
they have
To
a
an extent. I mean, they've
yeah,
got
to an extent, it is
yeah,
still like the Japanese version of gay relationships, which is generally kind of played for laughs. But they had kind of a big brutish dude who's like kind of dumb and just not getting that like his best friend who's been battling with him for years who's like, "I would follow you anywhere." He's like, "Oh, well, that's a nice thing to say."
yeah,
like, you're not getting it, dude.
yeah,
So it's that sort of thing with the relationship.
sure.
But I don't know if there's any such thing. If there is, I haven't gotten far enough to see it. I don't know if there's any such thing like there is in later Fire Emblem games where it's like these two have progressed to a point where they can get married, and that like
Right.
accents their battle capabilities
Sure.
or whatever, you know.
Well, I don't know. Like the idea of like dungeons and random encounters and that kind of stuff is enough to kind of get me interested. I wasn't really 100% sold on this, but from what you've told me and kind of some of the stuff I've read, I'm like this. I might actually go ahead and check this out. In fact, I'm going to. I just haven't ordered it yet. But
I would also recommend that this is sort of silly, but I have played past Fire Emblem games, usually on casual, at least for my first run, to be like, I need to get through this for review. I don't want to have to restart constantly. It takes forever. This one has this like time turner mechanic. That might be like copyright Harry Potter. I don't know, but it's got this this wheel thing that if you fall in battle, you can turn back turns to the point that you moved the unit that got killed, and then it's like, okay, I obviously shouldn't have moved him there.
Yeah.
And you can sort of like get a do-over. That is helpful to a point. I still wish I had turned it on casual because I've been playing on classic, and that's part of the reason that I am progressing so slowly.
Right.
Because I'm just getting like decimated in some battles, and I'm just like, I actually finished a battle with like only my main character remaining, and I was like, if I had played on casual, that would have been fine. But no, I have to redo this whole thing.
Can you still turn up the difficulty, but turn off permadeath and all that?
You cannot once you are in the. I think hard mode is always permadeath. I could be wrong, but they have two other difficulty modes where you can sort of switch from the beginning between the two. And once you're in it, though, you're in it. So I can't change. Yeah. I can't change back to casual now.
I wonder if they do the thing they do in the more recent Fire Emblems where you can turn on permadeath, but if they still need the character for the story, you just can't use them, but they're still there.
Yeah, they're still around. Like after my entire team had been wiped, I was trying to see if there was another way to revive them. And there kind of is. There are certain very rare kinds of springs that can revive characters, but they run out. So it only gave like 3 revivals, and I had wiped my entire team. So I was like, well, that's not good enough. Anyway, so like the characters were still talking to me. Like they were still like forwarding the plot. So they were still fine. They weren't dead, but they were incapacitated in whatever way. Also, the like them contributing in battle contributes to like their happiness. So at the end of each battle, you'll get like a little bonus based on how much they contributed, and you'll see a little like smiley face, like with different levels of smiling, based on how happy they are to have been, I don't know, a useful part of the team. It seems like, which is kind of an interesting mechanic. It's got lots of little systems that they kind of abandoned later, but it's interesting to see them all in one place.
Yeah.
Fire Emblem Echoes. Pretty good.
Fire Emblem.
Yeah. So let's move on to the big topic here before my voice totally gives out. Injustice 2 is dropping this week.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and it is. As I said in the chatty, it is a very Mortal Kombat take on the DC characters.
Extremely.
Yes. It to the point that when Mortal Kombat characters cameo in Injustice, it's just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, why not?
So
I'm a little bit annoyed by that. I'm gonna just to be open,
you don't like
and out
Sub-Zero hanging out with Batman?
Listen, I'm okay with 1, but it looks like we're getting 2. And if you're gonna put a lightning guy in, why Raiden and not or is it Raiden? I think in Mortal Kombat it's Raiden.
Sure. Why
Raiden and not like, Static or Black Lightning or literally anybody else?
Because Mortal Kombat. So
But here's the other thing: why do we need Sub-Zero? We've got Captain Cold. Like we've got Mr. Freeze as a skin for Captain Cold. We don't need 2 ice guys.
I mean, we have Scorpion too. Anyway, so
there's there's Firestorms. There would be a fire guy. Never mind.
Yeah. Anyway. So Injustice is a pretty skewed version of DC. They sort of went off in their own direction right from the start by having Superman straight up murder a dude. And granted, it was Joker, but still. So it's its own skewed version of normal. But one of the reasons these characters have been so enduring may be their ability to adapt from everything from playful innocence in Lego games to a violent story with intense adult themes, like Joker murdering Lois Lane and then Superman murdering Joker. So this week we were talking about how developers interpret known characters and sort of make them their own. I think it's fair to say that the way that Lego Batman and Lego DC and Lego Marvel, we got a new announcement this week of a Lego Marvel game. The way that those are made is very like of a type that is TT Games' sort of personality. Meanwhile, NetherRealm has a very distinct personality that is on the other end of the spectrum, and it has its own interpretation. So what traits do those characters need to keep in order to be recognizable? Because it can't just be the costume, right? Like it can't just be, oh, you've got the Batman costume on, you're Batman. And how much flexibility do we give in exploring outside the normal boundaries? Obviously quite a bit if we're letting Superman kill people now. And what makes what makes a character like Batman equally at home in Lego, Arkham, and Injustice?
All right. So I guess let's start because I have been training all year for this. And let me start.
This is literally what you do for a living.
Yeah. let me we literally just did an episode of Serious Fun about this. Or about superheroes anyway. And let me say one thing about this. There's an episode of the cartoon, the late lamented Batman, the Brave and the Bold, which if you haven't watched it is phenomenal. But it's a very cartoony, sort of silly Silver Age series. It's not at all dark. Yes. There's like 1 or 2 episodes that are darker and kind of like more in line with what you'd expect from a Batman cartoon. But by and large, it's very goofy and fun. And there's an episode.
It's the best version of Aquaman.
It is by far. And there's an episode in which Batmite appears. Batmite is like
that's the series finale, I believe you're referring to.
I think so, yeah. Or it's pretty close too. And he has this little speech where he talks about, and I actually pulled it up, Batman's rich history allows him to be interpreted in a multitude of ways. And he's talking literally directly to the audience who's complaining about this show.
It gets extremely meta in that last episode.
To be sure, this is a lighter incarnation, but it's certainly no less valid and true to the character's roots as the tortured Avenger crying out for mommy and daddy. And I think that this is the key thing to understand about superheroes, is that there's really no one right interpretation, right? Like, we could go back and say, well, the only accurate one is the one that started out when the character was created. But guess what? In the original versions of Batman, the original Batman comics, which, by the way, were done by Bob Kane and Bill Finger, not just Bob Kane. There's actually a documentary about that. I haven't checked it out.
I heard about that.
It's a story. If you don't know about it, it's a story worth looking into. But in those original comics, he uses a gun. Like, he is a costumed Avenger of the era, and when you're a costumed Avenger in that era, you use a gun.
Yeah,
we would not accept that.
It was more of like the Shadow and the
Yeah, it was very much influenced by the strips of the day. And we would not accept that as a part of Batman's personality now, right? Like, he's not supposed to use guns. Now, he still does. I'm looking directly at you, Arkham Knight. I'm looking directly at you, Chris Nolan.
When he does, it's usually in service of some, like, plot beat. Like, one of the things that stands out to me about Batman Beyond is that, like, the thing that convinced him to give up the cowl in the Batman Beyond chronology is he got so desperate he was about to use a gun, and then he realized, like, I can't do this anymore. So it was like used in service of the story in some way.
Well, there's also an issue of the comic Final Crisis, which is a absolutely bananas comic. I still don't really understand what happens in it, but it's worth reading. Where Batman's literally standing in front of Darkseid. If you don't know Darkseid, he's basically the Thanos of the DC universe, except he came before Thanos. And
How did Thanos become more known?
Well, it's because Marvel was smart and set it up well in advance. But yeah, Darkseid is the original. And so he's like this godlike entity that is capable of just absolute destruction and carnage. And Batman's just immortal. And he literally says, I'm never use guns, but this is the one time I'm going to make an exception. And he shoots him with this like magic god-killing bullet. Like I said, it's crazy. And then he gets like vaporized and sent back in time for his efforts. But it's a really cool scene. And I think that, you know, you get that scene and you get the weight of it because of that part of the character. But at the same time, like, you know, there's multiple interpretations of the character that are all kind of like contradictory and don't really play well with each other, right? Like, but there is a through line. We know Batman has to, by nature, be sort of a loner. Mm-hmm. We know that he has to be very competent and capable, largely because he's a man who is essentially, you know, working alongside gods. So he has to try to be better than them. So he's very driven. He's damaged on some level. And he has a cool car. Like, those, I think, are some of the key things you have to have in every interpretation. And if you look at every interpretation of Batman, whether it's the Burton Batman, the like 1960s Batman, or the Lego Batman, or whatever, they all have some element of that in there. Yeah. So it's, and that's the thing. Like, we talk about superheroes broadly. There's no one correct interpretation for most of them, but there are certain elements that you really need to get right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you brought up the Batmite episode, that and being a very direct response to fans saying like, "Oh, this is too kiddie, this is too unserious." I think that the creators were kind of lashing out at like the internet when
well, and the thing is, it hasn't stopped either. Like the Teen Titans Go cartoon, which I think is really, really funny, but also is like specifically designed to be stupid humor, and there's nothing serious about it. Mm-hmm. People are really still salty and angry about that because it's not like the Teen Titans show I grew up with. Well, it's not really for you. It's for the new generation of kids that have come along. Yeah. And they actually have an episode where it's literally just them talking about how they need to grow up and be darker and edgier to make the internet happy.
I mean, there's in Batman the Brave and the Bold, there was which also, by the way, to bring this back to games, there was a pretty great platformer game.
Oh yeah, there was,
from Way Forward. That captured the spirit of that cartoon.
Worth tracking down. Wii or DS, you can't go wrong.
One of my favorite quotes from that show of all time was, there was some sort of party going on at the Justice League headquarters, and they tried calling Batman, and his response was, it was just a quick cutaway gag where his response was, "Can't talk, skiing ninjas with lasers." And and it showed him like skiing downhill, and there were ninjas after him with lasers, and it was like, and it was a cutaway where you never really explored like what caused that or what, you know, how he resolved it, because it didn't matter. It's just like, that's the sort of crazy thing that Batman gets up to.
Yeah,
you know?
It's just part of the job of being Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
And, so anyway, like, so we can kind of bring this back to games a bit. Like I said, when we talk about like these like characters like a transmedia artifact, right? Like Superman, Spider-Man, Hulk, they exist in all these different media across multiple different platforms and different eras. You have to, like, there's going to always be contradictions. But let's talk about the games. Like, you want to start with Injustice, because we can talk about Injustice for a second.
I think you touched really well on the common thread of Batman in Lego, Arkham, and Injustice. Like those traits that you mentioned, even when it comes to something like as kind of inane looking as like the Justice League movie. Like when somebody asks Batman, like, "What's your superpower?" He's like, "I'm rich." You know,
that's a great line. I'm not gonna lie.
As problematic as that movie could be, maybe it'll be great. I don't know, but
I'm cautiously.
Like that's a good line. That explains Batman well. But like Batman, I think is pretty easy to see the through line of like these are the things that are always common to him. Superman, they took a much bigger liberty with.
In
Injustice.
Let's talk about Superman.
To the point that it kind of breaks the fiction, but it's like, it's okay. This is an Elseworld story. We can be a little flexible with Elseworld kind of things.
So I am Twitter friends with a lot of people who are like really into comics. Like they write, they read, they do all that stuff. And I love comics, but I love video games first.
Okay. Wait, we should maybe take a step back and explain the premise of Injustice, of the first Injustice. Is Joker kills Lois Lane, knowing that it will drive Superman so crazy that he will kill him, and that will be like a corrupting force that makes him basically, you know, God King of Earth.
And not just Lois Lane, like a lot of other people. But Lois
yeah.
is the one that we focus on. So I think it's like a nuclear bomb he sets off or something like that.
So that basically, like, it drives Superman to become a god king, to say, like, you people can't govern yourselves. You are obviously too broken. And so most of the plot is basically like the other superheroes deciding Superman's gone too far and fighting against him. I have not kept up with the Injustice verse enough to know the developments leading up to Injustice 2, but you might. But
no. So here,
that's basically the premise of how they like broke Superman to fuel this premise, you know.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out that the first game has like it has our, I guess for lack of a better term, our Justice League crossing over into that universe and trying to help set it right and bring evil Superman to justice and all that. Like the final battle in that game is literally our Superman fighting the Injustice version of Superman, and it's pretty good. Like it's literally just him taking him to the woodshed and. You know, like he's like you call in Superman because he's the only one that can deal with this problem, and it's a really cool final battle actually. But in this one, I don't think they're doing any of that. I think this is just straight up. This is the Injustice universe, and it's dealing with the fallout of that. Now there have been comics that have been running for 3 years or whatever in between games. I have not read those.
Yeah,
I don't have the time.
As far as I understand, there's like a power vacuum now that like Emperor Superman is not Emperor anymore. And
so as far as I know, Injustice 2 starts with Superman in prison. But there's another threat coming, the Legion of Doom, basically, which awesome. So we're getting like Gorilla Grodd and Cheetah and all that stuff, and also apparently Brainiac. And so these are all a big enough threat that apparently Superman and Batman kind of have to work together again. I don't know. Like I've been sort of trying to ignore a whole lot of the story. I know Supergirl plays a big part in it, Flash plays a big part in it, and I'm okay with all of that. But here's the thing, because a friend of mine on Twitter was asking, like, why do you guys like these games? It's like, people complain about like the DC murderverse in the movies, right, where everybody's just killing everybody, but we like Injustice. And I think here's the distinction I want to make is, number one, it's sort of the level of exposure, the reach of that interpretation, right? In the films, like that's like what DC is saying, okay, compared to the number of people who read comics or play our games, we are going to get orders of magnitude more people watching these films. And so this is the interpretation of these characters we want. We want to have them see Superman snap General Zod's neck. We want to have them see Batman probably kill at least 5 or 6 people. We want to see just like, this and this and this and this. Whereas, and I have a little bit more challenge with that, because I think that these are things that are a little bit more, you can't really get back from them. And they're also kind of the definitive version of that character for that medium, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the main universe. It's not an alternate
it's sort of
universe.
like it's sort of like the MCU, the Marvel universe, has been so successful at defining those characters that the concern is that the DCU is going to do the same thing for the popular culture of these characters. So it's like, well, you need to be really good stewards if you're going to do that.
And I, like, again, like I don't want to turn this into a DC versus Marvel thing. So they both have their strengths and shortcomings, but I think Marvel has done a way better job staying true to the characters, or at least coming up with a version of characters that works for the films that doesn't completely counteract what we like about those characters in the first place. I don't think I can say the same thing about DC yet. Now, I am very optimistic and hopeful for Wonder Woman.
Hopefully.
I shouldn't say very, I guess. I feel like this might finally be the one that I can actually walk away from and say I liked it, but I'm not 100% sure.
But in terms of,
I feel like they've gotten her mostly right.
Yeah, it feels like the point you're driving towards, though, is Injustice is going to, by nature of its existence, is going to reach like comics fans who kind of already get
gamers primarily.
Yeah, or gamers, yeah, but like people who probably inherently get this is an Elseworlds thing that a part of my brain can kind of ignore as this isn't the real Superman,
right?
This is a different take on it.
And the thing that bothers me about the criticism I see leveled against Injustice is, I mean, number one, let's be real. This is the Mortal Kombat team doing the DC universe.
Yeah,
it's going to be over the top. It's going to be stupid and edgy.
Another thing about the story that we failed to mention was that in the original, to make it believable that some of these human characters like Green Arrow or Batman could even be, or Joker could even be like taking and receiving these punches from the Flash and Superman, they make them. There's like a serum or something, I don't remember, of like
kryptonite pills, basically.
Sure, yeah. That like makes them.
Literally, I'm pretty sure they're just called kryptonite. Wait, hold on. I'm going to look this up because
it makes all of them on equal ground. So basically, like Batman can throw a punch that will actually like knock Superman across the city, just like Superman could. So like that's kind of stupid, but it's kind of the necessary evil you need for a fighting game where some people are superpowered and others aren't.
5U93R is the code name for a Kryptonian nanotech drug consumed by various characters during the story mode in Injustice: Gods Among Us. The pill was created by the regime Superman to enhance the strength and durability of his non-superpowered troops. So there you go.
Yeah. So
and that's so stupid. it's like, you know what? Fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and the point is like having that element is what makes it a viable fighting game.
Yeah.
And coming from the Mortal Kombat team, they really needed to. They couldn't have fatalities. You can't have Batman ripping someone's head off, but you can have like stop. It's like in Aladdin 2 when it's like genies can't kill anyone, but you'd be surprised what you can live through. It's like that kind of attitude towards the violence where they're like, they're not gonna kill you.
No, but like we might punch you through the center of the earth, or
we'll stop just short.
We might set you on fire or stab you a bunch.
We'll make sure afterwards that you're seen staggering around to make it clear that you're alive.
Yeah, and like don't get me wrong, like it is dumb. The Injustice universe is capital D dumb, but I sort of appreciate it. And the thing that bugs me about the criticism is like people who don't like this are acting like there has not been alternate universes in the comics before. Like literally, the DC universe is built around alternate universes and alternate Earths. So like this is
some of their biggest events ever have been explicitly about that.
Yeah. And so Injustice can exist in its own plane, just like the same way that there can be like there's like I think there's like one where there's like the Nazi version of the Justice League. There's the crime syndicate. There's one where they're all this or that. There's the film. Like they can all coexist and they can all matter at the same time. But you can't really say there's one that's definitive, right? Like I'm sure the Lego Earth is out there too. I don't know what Earth that is.
That would be such a hilarious crossover.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean like the subject of flexibility is really what we're hitting on here. Like outside the normal boundaries, we obviously gave them a lot of flexibility with Superman, and there are reasons we do that. One, it's a game, Two, you needed something to drive the story forward. Three, they at least gave it a justification that is semi-believable, where it's like, okay, yeah, I guess if Joker just committed mass murder, including the one person Superman cares about most, like that could conceivably drive him to snap. So it's not sacrificing a core part of the character.
No,
that we recognize.
I think
it's kind of actually exploring the character in a way similar to one of the best Superman stories ever, Red Sun.
Thank you. I was about to say that. Yeah,
where it's like, this is still Superman. Like this is still recognizably Superman. It's just he has been tainted in a way that he believes he's doing the right thing.
And he's sympathetic to a degree. Like I think that he's unquestionably the villain of that story, but you can kind of see where he gets, like, why he ends up the way he ends up. It's just basically the idea that the thing that I've always loved about Superman is that he is a god who has chosen not to be one, right? And like them playing with that idea of like, what if he wasn't benevolent? What if he did try to use his power and exert his will on others? Like there is room to explore that concept, and I don't think it in any way cheapens the actual character.
I mean, the common thread between Red Sun and Injustice, those two sort of Elseworld stories, is that he is not. It's not just an issue of him being a dictator that wants. Our usual view of a dictator is they're greedy. They want things for themselves. They want power. They want influence. They want fame, riches, whatever. Right. In both of those stories, he isn't really in it for himself per se. He's in it because he has looked at humanity and decided, you guys keep effing this up.
Yep.
And you can't make it right. You have proven that you can't make it right. I'm going to take care of it. So it's still driven from the same place as the other Superman that we recognize more readily, where it's like out of a place of concern for humanity. It's just when you take it to that level, it skews it in a way that it becomes, something that we recognize as, evil and wrong. But it doesn't, because it's coming from a place of concern about humanity, it doesn't sacrifice the core part of the character that people know,
And I would argue that Injustice is something similar. It's just much more selfish in nature. And so, like, but again, like, at the same time, like, I can understand why people don't like that. And to be true and to be real, I'm not 100% a fan of that either. But if you're going to have this whole idea of alternate universes and, like, 75 plus years of continuity and that sort of thing, inevitably there are going to be interpretations that contradict each other, and that's just going to be how it is. And I don't think that, because I've seen people, like, kind of do the whole concern trolling thing, like, there's gonna be kids who grow up who think that Superman's a bad guy and that Superman and Batman aren't best friends, and it's just like, what? Like, kids get it. Like, give them some credit, right? Like, they know that, okay, this is not the real Superman, or this is, like, trust me, they're smarter than you think.
Also, in kids' minds, everybody's best friends. Superman and Lex Luthor have adventures together. They're best friends.
Yeah, why not? Like, if you want to be best friends, they're best friends. So I don't know. And I think we're getting a bit far afield from the original topic, but this is just something I've been kind of, that irritates me about comics fandom sometimes, is that there's only one way to interpret this character. But I will agree, like, once you make Superman a murderer, you can't come back from that. And that's why I think if your main version of that character is going to be that, whether it's justified or not, that's where the problem comes in. But in Injustice, it doesn't matter, because guess what? It's a stupid alternate universe thing done by the Mortal Kombat people. You really can't hold it to the same standard.
And from what you said, I didn't actually see the ending, but from what you said about the ending of the original, the ending sort of explicitly makes it very clear that this is not the real one.
It is a rejection of that character. It is literally our good Superman coming in and taking the bad one out and showing him that there are, like, basically, like, saying, like, your way is wrong and you cannot, dictatorships are bad. And it's pretty good. Like, it's nice, because it's like, hey, actual Superman's here. Yay.
Yeah. Sounds again echoes of Red Sun, which has one of my favorite endings in a comic.
Oh, it's a great ending.
Ever.
It's a great ending.
As a random aside, I read somewhere that, like, that they didn't know how to end that, but then when you read the ending, it aligns so well with everything that came before that it's like, really, like this wasn't intentional. You weren't intentionally setting this up the entire time, because it fits, like, so brilliantly. To stop geeking out about comic books for a second, we have a little time for newsy bits.
I mean, is there anything else you want to cover? Like,
not particularly. I mean, Arkham, I feel like in the video game universe, I think Arkham is sort of the most pure, recognizable.
Arkham is very much
version of a DC,
like, Yeah, and I think that they've done a decent enough job with that. I'm not super bothered by. I mean, there's, like, things that bother me about, like, some of the tone and language and that sort of thing. But it's, Batman's a dark character. You can make a dark game about him, but you can make a nice, happy, fun game about him too. Like, that's what makes these characters great. Is they are malleable and they are designed to be.
Yeah. And the Lego games we touched on a little bit near the beginning. The Lego games are flexible because they're just like, it's pure, it's bubblegum fun. It's sort of the way they interpreted Batman in the Lego Batman movie, and in, I guess, the Lego movie as well, is like, he's sort of an ass,
Well, technically,
that seems like fair game too,
Right. Remember in continuity that Lego movie Batman and Lego game Batman are actually two different characters.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is kind of fun too, because you can even see, like, the subtle gradations in those two characters.
Yeah.
But the other thing I want to point out, I guess the last thing I want to say, is I feel like the Lego games in Injustice are they're more alike than they are different in how they approach the characters, right? They take like core parts of the characters and just exaggerate them in one direction or the other to make something that's just like, okay, this is like a big, goofy, silly world we're playing in.
Broad version of this character that you need to have it.
Yeah.
And this especially when it comes to these games that are ensemble casts, like Arkham, you can focus very, you can hone in on the fine details of Batman because it's about Batman. But when you have a Lego game or an Injustice game, it's like this is about 30 characters. Yeah. So we're gonna go broad brush on all of them, you know.
And honestly, like the thing I love about Injustice is that it really lets the free flag fly when it comes to how those powers are interpreted. The stuff they've been doing with the Flash in this game is just phenomenal. Like being able to like run through time and hit somebody with the past version of themselves. Yeah, that's hilarious.
And anger a T-Rex. Like, that's pretty great.
Or just like be able to like punch somebody a bunch of times and walk away while the punches are still landing. That's exactly something that character could do, but you never see it in the comics. But because this is like this big, exaggerated, ridiculous universe, you get to see it. And I think that's kind of why I'm sort of glad they let the Mortal Kombat guys take a crack at this, because it's just like, okay, if you gave a bunch of like just like overgrown kids the chance to be like, okay, what kind of ridiculous thing can we make these characters do? That's what Injustice is, and that's kind of what.
And this all sort of stemmed out of I forget the exact name, but wasn't it Mortal Kombat versus DC?
Yep.
Something like that. It all sort of came out of that, and then when they announced the first Injustice, there was a little bit of a like, what? But it worked out well. It's like by all accounts, it's a good, solid fighting game itself, and also a fun interpretation.
I'm going to pick it up today. I can't wait. Yeah.
So let's talk about a couple newsy bits here real quick. Speaking of superheroes, we touched on this earlier. Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 has been announced, which I joked on Twitter, like, give me a good reason why I need to play another Lego game, and then I saw like Spider-Gwen, and I was like, well, damn it.
That's the thing. It's like they have already pandered specifically to me, and I think to you, because we kind of have similar tastes in this stuff.
Yeah, I mean the cover shows Spider-Gwen, and I'm like, okay, fine.
You got Spider-Gwen, you got Baby Groot, there's Doctor Strange.
If they had Miss Marvel and Miles Morales on there, I'd be like,
which
okay,
they're gonna. So
I mean, like on the cover, I'd be like, fine, I'll pre-order it.
I'm just wondering, like, because they always do those things where it's like they bundle a minifig in with it, and I'm just like, okay, so who am I gonna be paying for? Because I just know they're gonna pick someone.
Who am I paying $20 extra for?
Oh my god,
for a minifig of so that's probably going to be pretty good. Those Lego games are remarkably consistently like good.
They're never
good,
bad.
They are good, solid, fun games to play with your kid or whatever.
Or just if you're just me
sitting or just there by yourself,
play, like
with your
oh boy, Planet Hulk,
with your minifigs. This other piece of news I know is very near and dear to your heart. Parappa and the Owendon devs have teamed up for Project Rap Rabbit.
God, Steve, did you pick this show just for me or what?
Here's the sad thing though. I checked out that Kickstarter. It is not doing well. It's
a Kickstarter.
It's a Kickstarter.
Maybe that's the problem. I did not know it was.
I'm actually thinking of writing something about this later today. Like, what is going wrong with this Kickstarter? I don't think in the initial reporting there was enough emphasis on the fact that this was a Kickstarter campaign, because I didn't realize that when I wrote my version of it. It wasn't in the initial reports. It was all coming out of Gemetsu, I think. So like we sort of got it secondhand from a Japanese source before the actual Kickstarter kicked off, and most Kickstarter campaigns make most of their money in the first 48 hours and the last 48 hours. Right. I think the first 48 hours have already passed, and they're up to about 75K out of like 1 million. So like that's not great. That's pretty bad, actually.
No, this is not great,
and it makes me concerned. But at any rate, they are teaming up for this game. It is a rhythm game starring a rapping rabbit, and I think the trailer that came out yesterday had some detail on there being like a Mass Effect style conversation wheel where you try to influence people by selecting the correct kind of responses, and then you rap it. Which I'm like, okay, sure, yeah. That's up my alley. What are your thoughts on Rap Rabbit? Besides,
I think it looks great. I didn't know it was a Kickstarter. Like that to me is a huge messaging problem. Like
yes, this is why I intend to write about it. I want to make people aware. I can't contribute because I have a personal rule about contributing to these things, because then I would never be able to cover it. Right. But I want to like make people aware that this is a funding thing, guys. Like make it happen. Also, I wonder if rhythm games are kind of a difficult ask in today's market in general. So it's kind of got two things going against it.
I guess, but like, I don't know. I feel like the lineage and the background behind this game should be enough to at least get some publisher to sign up.
You would think. And I mean, Owen Dunn, you might not recognize the name Owen Dunn offhand. That is the Japanese version of Elite Beat Agents. It's a cheer squad in Japan.
Yeah.
And
technically, Elite Beat Agents is the American version of Owen Dunn, but
when they brought it to America, they were like, we don't have like male cheer squads as much in America. Like that's not as much of a thing. So they made them like black suited G-men, which I just think that interpretation is funnier personally.
It's good either way.
But at any rate, the Owen Don games are also excellent for all the same reasons that Elite Beat Agents is. So
I just want it to be a success because then maybe we get Elite Beat Agents too.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Come on.
Nintendo, just pick this up, God.
And hire us as writers.
Yeah.
So I've got one more that I'll mention real quick. There is so little known about this that is like 99% speculation, whatever we're going to say. There was a report that The Legend of Zelda is going to be the next smartphone game, or at least one of the next smartphone games that Nintendo produces after Animal Crossing. They say it's probably going to be done in 2018. This was not some fly-by-night like game blog. This was the Wall Street Journal, so presumably
some fly-by-night newspaper.
Yeah, yeah. What does the Wall Street Journal know?
Yeah,
presumably there's some credence to this, and that they're probably legit. I think we're probably going to see. I don't know. I doubt we're going to see gameplay because their mobile development seems to be hiding gameplay until it's like a month out from release. But I think we're going to see like artwork or a name or something at E3. But what is a mobile Zelda game? Like, what does that even look like?
I've been trying to figure this out. I've been turning over my head, and I can't come up with an answer that's good. Like here's the thing. Like, and I feel that Nintendo's steps into the mobile sphere have been, I think, financially successful. I don't think they've been very hit or miss as far as being games. And I feel like Zelda is something you have to do, but I don't know what you do with it. Like, because if you think about like what is core to Zelda, what makes Zelda a thing? It's all its different dungeons and puzzles and exploration, but none of those lend themselves well to a mobile game unless they take the Super Mario Run route, where it just becomes a thing where it's self-contained. Yeah, there's no in-app purchases or anything like that. In which case, okay, sure. Maybe best case scenario is it's Hyrule Warriors on the phone. In which case, okay, sure, yeah, sign me up.
I'm mostly curious about the control scheme. I've seen a lot of places pointing out, including our sister site Modojo, that Zelda has done touchscreen stuff before with like the Phantom Hourglass. But that was, if I recall at least, it's been a while. But that was you controlling on the bottom screen and the action appearing on the top screen. Your stupid fat thumb was not like blocking. Was not like blocking Link as you were trying to swipe your sword or whatever.
So here's my, because I think number one, that might be kind of the most likely outcome. But number two, maybe the game is literally just, okay, here's a bunch of dungeons, and it's just like maybe it's just like a sort of like a Lara Croft Go kind of thing, where you're just like, okay, here's some puzzles, you just get through them, and then you can buy more puzzles later. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of exploration or anything in that title. So maybe that's what it's going to be.
What Zelda is a lot, and especially after Breath of the Wild was so successful with like open world, go anywhere, and this is going to be like no, like do not open the world, do not go anywhere. This is very self-contained. My hope is that it's kind of along the lines of Fire Emblem and Mario Run, where it's like you have your campaign, but you also have this repeatable portion in some way. Yeah.
Well, it's going to, I think the safe money is probably going to be on a spin-off rather than trying to actually make a Zelda game into a mobile game. So like, I would not be surprised if it was something more along the lines of like a Hyrule Warriors or something like that, where it's got the Zelda flair. It's got all of the aesthetic stuff.
Yeah. It's got a guy in a green tunic.
Yeah. But, as far as the game, it might not actually have that much in common with the actual console Zeldas. Yeah. But
it's like you need speaking of like, we talked about this with DC, like what do you need to be a Zelda game? It's like you need a dude with pointy ears, you need a boomerang, you need moblins.
Yeah. and the thing is, like, no matter what they do, it's going to sell like hotcakes because people will buy anything with Zelda on it. That's what I've discovered. So
I feel like this is probably the safest bet for the next game that they're going to charge a premium for. Like Animal Crossing is going to be free to play. Like it has to be free to play.
Yeah,
because Animal Crossing's whole thing is like buy furniture for your house.
I mean, Animal Crossing is made for mobile. Honestly, I think it's probably more interesting there than it is on the handheld.
I would be very surprised though if Zelda isn't just like pay us $10 and you get the thing, like Mario Run was.
Yeah, that's probably the safer bet. I don't think they're going to go in-app purchases to the degree Fire Emblem does.
Yeah. So that's the show.
Do you want to talk about the big news with Sonic?
Oh, breaking news! Right before
we went on the air.
Right before we went on the air, we were discussing this. Sonic Forces is introducing a new character. Your creation.
Yeah, and so this is really funny because okay, I have two minds. Number one, this is hilarious because if you know anything about the Sonic fandom, this is absolutely direct pandering to the whole "I'm going to make me but a hedgehog" kind of thing. Yeah. And two, that is brilliant.
It seems,
that's so how did it take him this long to figure that out?
This is one of those things that it's that's so stupid, but also
it's
pretty
the most
fun.
Interested I've been in this game. I honestly think this could be a really cool addition, and I'm not at all part of that fandom, but I gotta admit there's a certain degree of hey, I could make my own weird bird or bear guy.
Yeah, that's the thing that convinced me, because I was skeptical when the first headline I read was, in the next Sonic game you can make your own hedgehog, and I was like, okay, that sounds dumb. I don't want to make I don't want to make a hedgehog.
Well, and you can go online right
now, make a dog or cat or bird or wolf or
Yep.
It's oh, okay, so you've got the whole Sonic and his animal buddies thing going.
And it makes sense if thematically, I think what they're going for is they need everybody to help lead this rebellion or whatever. It kind of makes sense. Yeah. And honestly,
it seems cute. It seems like a cute idea.
Yeah, and just as a fun exercise, if you've never done this, go to Google image search, turn on safe search, and then just
for God's sake, turn on safe search.
Type in your name, the hedgehog. So it'd be Steve the Hedgehog or Brian the Hedgehog, and see what comes up. And you will see that there is a market for this, and it is a huge market. And honestly, like I said, I think this is going to be one of the best-selling Sonic games in a long time, just for that reason.
Yeah, I should have titled this episode "Steve the Hedgehog," but we had so much other stuff to talk about. There is quite a few results for Steve the Hedgehog. He's red. He's got kind of a mohawk thing going.
Yeah, you don't have to go too much into detail because this is a family show. So
no, there's no wait. I think Safe Search is on because I don't see any dirty results. This is the other thing we joked about when we were talking about it before the show. We were like, there needs to be an option for the chaste or horny versions of your of your personal creation, because that's sort of the dichotomy of the fan created Sonic the Hedgehog characters is that they are overtly extremely evangelical Christian, or or they do all sorts of filthy things.
Yeah. I can't comment any further.
So if Sega really wants to cater to that community, let me tell you.
Yeah, I don't think they want to that much.
But they will.
Yeah.
People are going to use this to take the screenshots and use them as their, I don't know, their modeling for their drawing.
Or avatars or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot they could do with this, and I honestly think that they would be foolish not to take full advantage of it.
Our silly jokes aside, this is crazy smart. This is probably the smartest thing Sega's done for Sonic in 10 years.
It's a genius move, and honestly, I'm not even that big a fan, but I would check this game out just to make my own dumb animal guy.
Sure, yeah. They should have a little
a lot more
version
interesting
of it online or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe that would undercut sales. Who knows? But
I'll roll the dice. Why not?
I'll make a Steve Bird. Why not?
Steve the Bird.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're gonna sign off. I don't have anything particular to plug. My Fire Emblem review is coming sometime, but I don't know when, and I'm gonna be traveling a lot this week, so I can't make a lot of promises regarding that. But we're gonna be having some other content going up this week based on, well, probably this weekend, next week, really, just the entire time leading up to E3.
Yep.
Based on sort of what we're seeing this week. So keep an eye out. We're getting to that area where devs are starting to tell us what they've got, either obliquely or overtly, but we can't necessarily say it all yet. So as soon as we are allowed to say so, we will say so on the site. So keep an eye out.
Fun.
So Brian.
Yeah.
You have a new episode of Serious Fun that went up literally right before this. So.
Yep. Just uploaded it this morning. New episode of Serious Fun with a former student of mine who did a YouTube video game series for his independent study project in his senior year. We talk about that. We talk about analyzing games. He defends his fandom for anime. And it's a fun little conversation. We also still have our discussion of the Marvel Cinematic Universe up there. You can go and find that very quickly. I just linked to it on my Twitter at twitter.com/learnonaut. But if you go on SoundCloud or iTunes and search for Serious Fun, you should be able to find it as well.
I want to, you don't have to do this immediately because it's only like your third episode, but I want a revisit of that MCU discussion after we get a few more Marvel movies under our belt, but especially about Guardians 2.
We are coming. We've talked about maybe doing a Guardians 2 show, and we're going to be doing something. Maybe not on my show, but we're doing something for Hulk in November. So
there we go.
So there will be a follow up of sorts later this year.
Because the whole thing about Rocket's anger problem, I think, is like explored a lot is. Guardians.
It really is.
I'd like to hear them chime in on that.
It's such a great movie. We've been spoiled for movies so far this year, and it just kind of feels like after May, everything just sort of goes downhill.
Yeah. Well, Spider-Man: Homecoming might be good.
Maybe. I'm still hoping Wonder Woman's going to be good, but I'm not. Like, I feel like we've already.
It looks like Captain America: The First Avenger, but with
and that's okay. Yeah. That's okay.
Anyway, we're gonna get out of here. So thanks for listening. Review us on iTunes, etc., etc. Visit the site. Visit ShackFacts. Until next week, when hopefully I won't be sick and we'll have another person around. I'm Steve Watts.
I'm Brian Carr.
And we'll see you on Chatty.